Welcome to the 7th animal already, the wide lip rhinoceros. Having my easel here and we are going to draw. So here we are at the zoo and well, it's very quiet out here at the moment. We are in Corona time, so the zoo is closed, but I'm very happy that the zoo asked me to draw this amazing animal. It's the wide lip rhinoceros, and well, it's a huge animal. I think well, now that I'm watching this very closely, it's kind of it's a kind animal, and he weighs about 3,000 kilo. This one is. So wow, that's a lot of kilos, and well, it's like a huge tank or something. And when you are at the zoo and seeing those animals live, then you actually get the feel of the how colossal they are. And well, I'm sketching as good as I can. I can see how the eye is positioned and how the nose is positioned. They are just amazing animals. And well, of course, just like kids, they move around. But I do get a very good impression of how odd his head is. The ears are way up on top of the head. They are eating constantly. And look at that. You can see the ears, and then you can see the two horns, and you can also see how low the eye is placed. And then, of course, the wide lip completely at the bottom. So, well, it's quite amazing how broad it is, and look at his tongue is coming out. Well, we're just going to give this amazing animal a go on the paper. So I will head back to the atelier, and then we will see what will come out, of course. It's just amazing. I love these animals. So here we're back at the studio, and this is our rhino, and thank you Burgers Zoo for the reference pictures so I can make a close study. Now what I did is I've put in 2 lines over the reference picture, so I get a fair idea of how everything is placed. Because, well, a rhino is a very odd-shaped animal. Now just look at the difference, the big distance between the ear and the eye, and I also can see that there's a big ridge there, a big wrinkle just above the front paw. And here is the top of the rhino and its back, and by putting in the cross lines I can actually see more immediately where the ear is going to be, where the eye is going to be, and where the 2 horns are going to be. So here I'm sketching. I'm using, by the way, I'm using the charcoal pencil for my first setup. And well, what you notice is that the rhino has 2 horns, one smaller which is placed in between the eyes, and one bigger which is placed lower near the nose. And the eye itself is very, very small indeed. And there are wrinkles around the eye, and this makes the eye appear a little bit bigger. But the actual eyeball of the rhino is very, very small in comparison with the rest of the body. And the body is huge. It's well, this animal is like a tank, and it can weigh up to thousands of kilos. The one that I studied in the zoo was about 3,000 kilos, I think, and you can just not imagine how heavy that is. So that's why I loved watching that rhino in real life. Now I want to also draw in the natural habitat of the rhino. So I'm putting in a horizon line and a few, well, trees in the background. And now that I'm happy with my first setup lines, I can start placing in the shadows. And for this I'm also still use the simple charcoal pencil, and I'm drawing on the Strathmore Charcoal paper. And the paper is gray, so it's not a white kind of drawing paper, but it's already gray. And I've chosen the gray because the rhino is gray of itself. Now here you can see that big wrinkle just above the front leg. And what you can also see is that the skin itself is very wrinkled, but on its forehead it's straight, and then around the ears it starts to become wrinkling again. And that's exactly what gives that rhino the feel of being a tank and being enormous. And I also chose to draw this rhino like he just fits on the paper. So the side of the belly is out of the picture a little bit, and it looks like he is kind of walking into my drawing while he is grazing. And this kind of rhino is a grass eater. It eats grass all day, and it needs a lot of grass to keep in shape, because this animal is huge. So that is why I've chosen this kind of a composition. And in this composition, the rhino actually takes away half of the whole drawing. Now the light is coming from above, so it's about midday, and this results in the shadows falling on the legs. Shadow is partially on the front of the head, which is dish-like, and of course underneath the horns there's shadow too. And I think that's a nice, this gives a nice feel of massiveness. And you can just see the landscape. I'm marking this in with white, so this is a little reminder for me, as I will also color in this drawing. And by placing in those little white dots, I know that I need to keep notice of the area that's behind the rhino later on. Now, as I was saying, the sun is coming from above, so on the lower part of that horn there's shadow too. And of course I wanted this rhino to be about the horns, so the horns are closest to the viewer in this drawing. And he's simply grazing. He's just well, eating along while he's slowly moving here through this landscape. And I will put some well, perspective lines a little bit, and the attention is going towards the rhino, so I'm making great use of that. And this landscape, of course, contains a lot of grasses, short grass, long grass, yellowish grass, grass that is dried up, but also a little bit of green grass. Now the fun part starts, and that's of course coloring in everything. And well, the sky actually just can be blue, and the nice thing, I'm using here the pastel pencils, and in this case they are by Stabilo Carbothello, and I'm simply blending in different kinds of blue, a little bit of darker blue, a little bit of lighter blue, just as long as the top of the sky is a little bit darker, and as the sky is moving towards the horizon, the sky tends to become a little bit lighter of color. And then this is the first area of, well, the earth, the land itself. And I also put a little bit of blue so that it appears to be far away from us. And then as the landscape is moving towards us, I can put in a little bit more color. So I'm using the very light yellow ochre, and then a little bit of some darker ochre. So this is all land, the landscape itself. And as the land is coming towards us, the grasses are coming towards us, I can put in a little bit of the darker ochre, for instance, and I combine that with the light ochre and a little bit of sap green. And this together should make appear to be a grassy landscape. And I also use the green for the trees. And the top of the trees, of course, just like the Rhino, are light of color on top and then darker on the underneath of the trees. But I keep them blurry because they are in the distance, of course. And then here is a little bit of area where it's sandy, I'm imagining. And here in front, the area tends to become a little bit darker. And I can also draw in a few of the grasses here that can be defined a little bit more. So I'm drawing in strings of grass, and some strings are, well, a bit dried up, and some areas in between the dried up grasses are a little bit more green. And in this way, I'm trying to suggest that this is in front of us, while the rest is way in the back. I can even draw in some little detail in the grasses in front. Now, once I'm satisfied with the landscape area, which is only half of my drawing, because well, the better part of my drawing is about that rhino, of course. This is what I intended. I intended the rhino to be a huge animal. He's like a tank, and he is grazing through that landscape. Well, I think it's an amazing animal. He is very oddly shaped, and it's very nice to make a drawing like this. Also watching what kind of an area it is moving around in, and then that huge heavy body slowly going through the landscape. I just love it. And for the rhino itself, I'm using different kinds of gray. So a little bit of light gray, and a little bit of somewhat darker gray. And you can see some of the hairs on top of the ears. I will put that in a little bit. And this is my lighter gray. And for the areas that pick up a little bit of sunlight, I can just put in the light gray there. And in that way, you can see that the top of the horns are catching the light, and they are much brighter than the underneath of the horns. So, well, I'm trying to get as much as a 3D effect about the horns, around the horns, of course. And they are very, very well, distinct markings for the rhino. You can instantly see, okay, that's a rhino because of its horns. And what I also see in between all the gray that is going on inside that nose, inside that rhino, is a little bit of a darker pink. And I blend that together with the mid gray that I used. And well, I simply use a little bit of my fingers to blend it all together. I also see a little bit of blue on the mouth and on the top horn. And here underneath the ear there's a lot of shadow going on. And you can actually see now that the face is a bit of like a dish shaped. So that's very nice. And then the darkest gray I am using for the nose area. And the nose is well, flat on the ground. He is grazing, he is picking up grasses. So that area catches the most of the shadows. And its snout should be directly into the ground as he's grazing there. And I'm lighting up some of the grasses here to get a little bit more feel of, well, a little bit of an atmospheric perspective, actually. So a little bit more detail in the grasses. And I just cannot resist. But here, way in the back, I'm drawing in some birds that are starting to fly away from the trees. And I think that's a nice contrast, those tiny little birds and then that huge rhino here in front. So, this is my drawing. I hope you like it. Should you want to see the complete tutorial in real time, then you can find that on my Patreon page. So, thank you for watching, and I will see you again in my next tutorial.